Welcome to another episode of Gone Mental with Kristy
and Andrew.
Today we want to talk about the positives of having bipolar. And yes, there are some.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about the problems and taking medication and what to do about it. But life with bipolar is often fun. I think I'll start. I have type 2, which means that I have hypomania, which is, roughly speaking, lower highs, but they tend to be on a sort of a longer trajectory, but just as bad depression. There are a number of different ways to have bipolar 2, but what it is for me is hypomania is basically my normal state. So much of the time I have a slightly heightened elevation of elevated energy, which means that everything I do is good fun. I can put in total energy, I'm enthusiastic. I can think of 2 or 3 things at once. Falling down into depression or fatigue is a real drag after that, but I get a lot done and I really enjoy myself. Kristy?
I wouldn't change having bipolar, even if I could. I think some of the things that have been really positives for me are my friends who also have mental illnesses. I love them and I wouldn't know them, and I probably wouldn't have met them, and I probably wouldn't have found the same kinship.
Kristy and I would never have met it without bipolar.
Yes, and I can't imagine my life without Andrew. It's equipped me to be more compassionate.
More compassionate?
I think
Kristy, you're about the most compassionate person I know. How are you more compassionate?
But I'm more compassionate because I have bipolar. I think I would have been less compassionate if I hadn't lived with a mental illness. It's through great suffering that people become compassionate, in my opinion.
Oh, I see. So you got more in touch with the condition, what it can do, and that other people are feeling the same as you.
It's even beyond having compassion for people with mental illnesses. I think having bipolar has made me a better human being, that I can have compassion for other people who are suffering, whose suffering I don't completely understand. Like somebody who is suffering from child abuse or anything like that. And that's open to me because I had bipolar.
I would like to think that I'm more compassionate because of it, but I'm not as sure as Kristy about that. I'm still probably working that one out.
So therefore I think bipolar made me a better person.
You mean realising you have bipolar because you've always had bipolar? So.
My opinion is I've always had bipolar, but yes, if I had been able to pretend to be normal my whole life, I think and I use the word normal in brackets, I think I would have been much less compassionate to other people who've experienced trauma.
You'd have gone through life being tense and guarded, and yeah, I think that would have been awful.
Not being diagnosed would have been a big problem, but even if I hadn't had bipolar, if I had been completely normal, to use the finger marks again, I think that I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I'm growing to be proud of the woman I'm becoming.
So, okay. I think probably we can finish that one off and perhaps continue later.
Yeah. I'd also want to ask Andrew the question: if you could choose, would you choose not to have bipolar?
I can't imagine myself without bipolar. It is so intricately connected. It explains so much of my life. I cannot imagine who I would be without it. And so, no, I couldn't possibly choose to be without bipolar.
Another thing that I want to say before we do close this episode, and it will probably be a shortest episode, is that I think I've learnt things about how to help people. I've learnt about different systems of support, and I wouldn't have...
Which we will mention in another episode.
I would not have looked for those systems of support and social services and that sort of thing. If I hadn't had bipolar, I now want to become a social worker in the future. I wouldn't have that ambition without bipolar. When people who I've loved
Really?
become,
Not, would you know that you would have done something else, or would you just not have known?
I would not have known. I think that also there have been times where people I love have become unwell, and because I've had experience with mental health, I've known how to help them. So their lives would have been diminished if I hadn't gone through having bipolar and continued to live with it. Yeah, so that's the positives of why I think that I want to be me, and being me, a part of being me is having bipolar.
Me too. See you next time.